Well, thank you, David. Thank you, everybody. This morning really is about the best of Delaware and in some ways the worst of Delaware. As we were reminded at the outset by Sonny, history is important. As we just heard from County Executive Meyer and from Councilwoman Kirkpatrick, Hockessin has important history. And there is no way to change our future as a county, as a state, and as a country if we don't confront, engage with, understand, and move past our history. So to the family and friends and neighbors who are gathered here today, to the folks who have made this happen over 8 long years, Billy, thank you. Thank you to everybody who's been a part of this remarkable crew from all sorts of different backgrounds who've brought your resources and your skills, your talents, and your abilities. The fact that this school was on the verge of sheriff's sale, and in a sense of urgency, all of you came together and contributed of your resources, your time, and your heart to make sure that this chapter in Hockessin's history and Delaware's history was not lost and was not forgotten. That is in many ways the best of Delaware. You came together and you made sure that our elected officials at the county level, the state level, the federal level became aware of and engaged in finding this solution. And to County Executive Meyer and to Vanessa and to Tracy and to Marcus, thank you for what the county is doing here. Thank you for being the stopgap that makes this stabilization possible, for being the investor that makes this next chapter happen. You know, it's probably a risky thing as a lawyer to ask an audience to think about lawyers and their wonderful role in American history. But I think we should give a round of applause to the late lawyer Lewis L. Redding. Lawyer Redding was the first African-American lawyer admitted to the Delaware bar, and is the man for whom the city-county building is named, and is the man who conspired with Chancellor Seitz to make history in case after case after case. And as our esteemed Chief Justice reminded us, that was rare. That was unique in the nation. A nation still sweltering under centuries of racial oppression, of legalized segregation. A nation still in the throes of apartheid here in North America. It was lawyer Redding who heard the cry of a mom. This, at its core, is the story of what happens when a mother is determined to do right by her child. As you heard, you know, Sarah just wanted the bus to stop. Yeah. She wasn't trying to upend the entire order. She just wanted her daughter Shirley to have a little bit easier ride to school. And Lawyer Redding is reported when they had that first meeting, and she said, "Lawyer Redding, I'm just trying to get the bus to stop and take my daughter to this school. I'm not dreaming of her going to the school up the hill." He said, "I'm not going to fight to get her a seat on that bus. I'm going to fight to get her a seat in that classroom. Yeah. I'm going to fight to end this in America." And his partnership with Chancellor Seitz was only possible because Chancellor Seitz looked clearly at what every lawyer in America knew, which was that Plessy v. Ferguson was a lie, that separate but equal was a facade, that it was a legal fiction. All he had to do was what a lawyer should do when asked to decide a case. Look at the facts. Go and visit. Meet with the students and the teacher. Look at the books. Look at the facilities. Go up the hill and then decide. Decide that separate but equal, if that was the law of the land, he was going to make it the law of the land. And he was going to insist on integrating first the University of Delaware, then the schools here in Hockessin, then Claymont High School, and then on to the Supreme Court decision that changed the arc of history of the entire United States. We heard from my colleague, Senator Carper, about where he grew up. I grew up right here. When we moved to Hockessin in 1969, I went to Yorkland Elementary School and to HB Middle School. And for a number of years, I lived literally not even a quarter mile, a few hundred yards that way. I never heard of Parker versus University of Delaware, of Belton versus Gebhart, or of Beulah versus Gebhart until I was in law school. Wow. I had the blessing of hearing from someone who was critical to the civil rights movement, him talk about Jack Greenberg and Lewis Redding and Judge Williams and all the history of what happened here in Delaware. And it made me proud to be a Delawarean, but shocked that I'd never learned it in my own schools. So Rohit, thank you for being part of what I hope is our next generation that will demand to learn in this place and in other places our own history. You know, history is a hard thing. History requires us to look clearly at what has been done in our name. And I'll remind you that back in 1950, elected officials at the city, county, and state and federal level, who were all white, would not have seen anything wrong with this building. They would have commented on how strong it was, at how beautiful the bricks were, at how, frankly, compared to the other so-called colored schools built by P.S. DuPont, most of which were wood and ramshackle, this was a very solid school. Few would have looked with the eyes of Chancellor Seitz, or with the eyes of Lawyer Redding, or with the eyes of a mother, and seen the injustice in our society. So for me, this is a reminder of the strength, of the fortitude, of the students who were educated here and their parents who were determined to give them the best they could, even when everything in America was stacked against them. And the doors that will open here in the future, as this becomes a training place and a convening place for a reflection on our history and a determination that we will march forward, is a reminder that history is not over, that history is what we make together. The county executive referenced, there is now in the National Park Service of the United States a $15 million a year grant program for the preservation of sites associated with the American Civil Rights Movement. Congresswoman Blunt Rochester, who is helping make history every day, traveled with our dear friend, recently departed Congressman John Lewis, to see the sites in Alabama that this fund has preserved. There's never been an application from Delaware. I so look forward to joining with my friend, the Congresswoman, in endorsing the first application from Delaware for this school and its preservation. Just Thursday, the Senate of the United States unanimously passed a resolution written by folks in my office and that will be carried in the House by my friend and our Congresswoman. And it is a resolution recognizing Louis L. Redding for his courage, his persistence, and for his fidelity to justice. We are far from done. There is more good trouble to get into together. The march for equality and justice is just beginning its current phase. And if we take a few more moments to reflect on what happened here and how the evil of segregation took a lot of work and a lot of effort to put behind us, and how the evils of inequality and a lack of equity in health and housing and policing are right in front of us, perhaps we too will have our eyes opened as the eyes of a mother, a lawyer, and a chancellor were opened to truth. Thank you to all of you. Thank you for what you're doing. And thank you to my friend and colleague, Congresswoman Blunt Rochester.